And hello, everyone. This is John with Renewed Life. Sorry, I'm a couple days late this week with the podcast, but today is Friday, November 12th, 2021. I should have been out on this past Tuesday, but had some things going on. Anyway, listen, what I decided to do tonight's show on is fear. Okay? Now I'm going to get deep on you here. I'm going to get real deep. I'm actually going to turn back to the psychology textbooks. That's how deep we're going to get. All right. We're going to talk. What I really want to do is explain to you not just fear. I mean, we all know what fear is. So we're going to go deeper than that. We're going to look at some things that you might not be aware of. So let's get started doing that. First, I'd like to tell you, according to psychology, what is fear? I didn't look it up on Google. You can do that if you'd like. It might come up the same thing. I have no idea because I didn't look it up. I like to stick to the what the textbook says. Fear is an unpleasant, often strong emotion caused by anticipation or awareness of danger. I'll read that again. Fear is an unpleasant, often strong emotion caused by anticipation or awareness of fear. Okay. Now, what does that mean? Let's look at that real quick. A strong emotion caused by anticipation or a sense of danger. Now, most of us are aware of the fight or flight mechanism that we have in our brain, the prefrontal cortex, the amygdala. We know that we're equipped with that to sense, to say, hey, that flame is hot, don't touch it, or when someone's charging at us with a knife or a sword or whatever, it clicks in our head, hey, this ain't right, I better run, or I better fight, whichever your brain tells you. Now, what it is, even though we have that mechanism, it acts as a computer. It doesn't tell us from the time that we're born, at the moment that we're born, it's not pre-programmed to tell us what to fear and what not to fear. It doesn't tell us what to fight or when to run. Those things are added as we live our lives. The mechanism is there, but think of it as a computer that has no information on it, and life. The computer is designed to just observe and calculate and input everything it sees, hears. Well, it can't taste or touch or feel, but you get the point. It's there, it's empty. So everything that it's observing, everything that it's learning, everything that's being inputted into that computer system, that's how it's going to respond. Well, our fight or flight works the same way. When we are born, we really don't have any fear because we don't know what fear is. The mechanism itself is there. And as we get older and we experience things, we experience life, society, our culture, our religious beliefs, all of those things are being added in our environment. If listen, if you were brought up to believe that a man with a gun is dangerous, okay? Now, when you see a man with a gun, you're going to automatically think, your brain is going to kick in and say, hey, this is dangerous, okay? Now, let's just say for this example, you don't feel the same way about a woman carrying a gun. You don't feel as threatened because that's not what was inputted into your brain, into your subconscious, your unconscious. Okay, that's not what you were programmed with. You were programmed with, when you see a man with a gun, it's not good. Okay, so that's the way you see it as you get older. And like I said, you don't have that same reaction maybe with a woman holding a gun because that's not what you were taught. That's not what was programmed. So that's really fear. Okay, that's how the brain, the brain interprets fear by what. See, maybe if I put it to you this way, maybe it'll be a little clearer. Our brain can only understand something if it has something to compare it to. In other words, if someone has never, okay, let's say you had this really traumatic experience, okay? And it wasn't like a common thing that happens to a lot of people. It happens to very few people, let's say. So not many people are going to be able to, you've heard this term, relate to how you feel or what you think about your experience. Okay, so they can't relate to your experience because they don't have anything inside of their brain that's been programmed there to relate it to compare it to. Our brains will only understand if we have something to compare it to. So that's why in conversation, when you're talking to your family, your friends, even a therapist, a doctor, whoever, when you're talking to anybody, and you're trying to explain something to them, an experience that you had, you use a lot of comparisons. You'll say, imagine, I don't even know, but you use a lot of, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but you use a lot of comparisons. So we do that because we're trying to have the other person be able to relate to what we're telling them. Because obviously, if they haven't experienced it, they can't relate. And even a lot of times, believe it or not, even if they have experienced it, they still can't fully relate because their perception and the way they feel or reacted to that particular situation that was very similar to yours is going to be different than the way you perceived it and the way that you felt about it. Two people can go through exactly the same thing, but have different feelings and reactions. You know why? Because it depends on what's been programmed in their mind. It depends on what has been inputted. That's what causes, our reality, our perception. All right. So, I want to share with you. I don't know if you've ever heard of Sigmund Freud, okay? But I want to tell you who he is. Sigmund Freud lived from 1856 to 1939. And he was the founding father of psychoanalysis, which is a method for treating mental illness. But it's also a theory which explains human behavior. For anybody out there that's listening, if you're in any kind of therapeutic business or coaching, therapist, hypnosis, if you're a hypnotist, if you studied hypnosis, you know who Sigmund Freud is. Because he really, hypnosis is based on a lot of what Sigmund Freud did. But hypnosis, not so much the other ones. Also, you've heard of Milton Erickson, the Ericksonian techniques of hypnosis. But let's stick to Sigmund Freud here for the moment. This isn't about hypnosis. Sigmund Freud believed that events in our childhood have a great influence on our adult lives, shaping our personality. For example, anxiety originating from traumatic experience in a person's past is hidden from the consciousness, which means they're not consciously aware of that anxiety, that traumatic experience. They're not constantly thinking about it, but they are always showing a reaction from it. Okay, so it may cause problems during adulthood in the form of neurosis. When we explain our behavior to ourselves or to others, and this, as we're explaining our behavior, that's a conscious thing. We're doing something consciously. It's causing a conscious mental activity. We rarely give a true account of our motivation. And this isn't because we're deliberately lying. While human beings are great deceivers of others, they are even more adept of self-deception. We fool ourselves. Sigmund Freud's life's work was dominated by his attempts to find ways of penetrating this often subtle and elaborate camouflage that obscures the hidden structure and processes of personality. His lexicon had become embedded within the vocabulary of Western society. Words he introduced through his theories are now used by everyday people. Such words as anal, personality, libido, denial, repression, cathartic, neurotic. I'm going to give you a quick story of one of Freud's cases. The case of Anna O. Okay, which her real name was Bertha Pappenheim. But the case of Anna O marked a turning point in the career of the young Viennese neuropathologist by the name of Sigmund Freud. It even went on to influence the future direction of psychology. Anna O suffered from hysteria, a condition in which the patient exhibits physical symptoms, convulsions, paralysis, hallucinations, loss of speech, without any apparent cause. Her doctor, which was Freud's teacher, Joseph Breuer, succeeded in treating Anna by helping her to recall forgotten memories of traumatic experiences. During discussions with her, it became very apparent that she had developed a fear of drinking when a dog she hated drank from her glass. Her other symptoms originated when caring for her sick father. She would not express her anxiety for his illness, but did express it later on during psychoanalysis. As soon as she had the opportunity to make these unconscious thoughts conscious, her paralysis disappeared. Brewer discussed the case with his friend, Sigmund Freud. Out of these discussions came the germ of an idea that Freud was to pursue for the rest of his life. Freud proposed that physical symptoms are often the surface manifestations of deeply repressed conflict. However, Freud was not just advancing an explanation of a particular illness. Implicitly, he was proposing a revolutionary new theory of the human psyche itself. This theory emerged bit by bit as a result of Freud's clinical investigations, and it led him to propose that there were at least 3 levels of the mind. And I'm going to go over those right now. I'm going to put up on the screen here, for those that are watching and not listening, a diagram of Freud's theory. Okay, so from 1990 to 1905, Freud, 1905, 1900 to 1905, Freud developed a topographical model of the mind, the human mind, where he described the features of the mind's structure and function. Freud used the analogy of an iceberg to describe the 3 levels of the mind. Let's look at that image. The unconscious mind. Here we see above the water the tip of the iceberg, which is the conscious mind. The small amount of mental activity that we know about, that we're aware of. Thought perceptions. Then we have another layer, the subconscious. Things we could be aware of if we wanted to, or if we try. And this is memories that are stored, like stored knowledge. Like if we think about something, we could pull a memory out. That's the subconscious. And then we have the unconscious. Things we are unaware of and cannot become aware of. And then we have the ID. The ID is part of the unconscious mind, though, and compromises the 2 instincts, eros and thanatos. But this is where you'll find fears. You'll find unacceptable sexual desires. You'll find violent motives, irrational wishes, immoral urges, selfish needs, shameful experiences, and traumatic experiences. On the surface is, like I said, the consciousness, which consists of those thoughts that are the focus of our attention right now in this moment. The preconscious consists of all of which we can retrieve from our memory, or the subconscious. And the third and the most significant is the unconscious. It's here that lies the processes that are the real cause of most behavior. It's the most important part of the mind that you cannot see. The unconscious mind acts as a repository, a cauldron of primitive wishes an impulse kept at bay and mediated by the preconscious area or the subconscious. Here's an example. Sigmund Freud in 1915 found that some events and desires were often too frightening or painful for his patients to acknowledge, and believed such information was locked away in the unconscious mind. This can happen through the process of repression. Sigmund Freud emphasized the importance of the unconscious mind, and a primary assumption of the Freudian theory is that the unconscious mind governs behavior to a greater degree than what people know or suspect. So the goal of psychoanalysis is to make the unconscious conscious. I mean, we can go on about Freud, but I don't want to make this whole thing about Sigmund Freud. I do want to take you over to Psychology Today, which is a website that I frequently visit. There's an article on here from Nick Morgan, PhD. It's called How to Conquer Your Unconscious Fears. Now I'm going to share this with you. The article says, I am not a believer in the idea from The Secret that says if you just believe that $1 million will manifest itself in your pocket, it will. But I do think that if you believe that you are a follower, you will always be treated like one, because you will stand, walk, and speak like a follower. If you believe that you are a leader, you'll get the chance to lead. Not because of magic, but because you'll send out unconscious signals that will tell the rest of the world what to think of you. If you are nervous going into a meeting of powerful people, that's because you don't believe at some level that you belong there. The only way to take charge in that case is to change your belief so that you don't telegraph to everyone else that you are not worthy of notice. Remember that just about everyone else in that room got there the same way that you did, one step at a time. They had to work through their feelings of not belonging, just like you. For the most part, we accept what other people tell us about themselves. We don't have enough time for the alternative. We especially accept what other people's unconscious minds telegraph about themselves to our unconscious mind, because we're not even aware that we have taken it on board. So how do you do it? How do you turn yourself into a fearless, positive, neurosis-free go-getter? The implementation is quite simple, but it takes discipline and patience. Remember that you're replacing synapses that have been firing for a long time, perhaps years, with varying degrees of intensity. And now you are replacing those connections with new ones. Persistence and patience will replace old trauma, but it will take time. And I say this all the time. And anybody that knows me personally knows that I say this all the time. Consistency. If you want change, you have to be consistent on what you want to become, because that's the only way to rewire your way of thinking. Our brains, we have to consciously do something. Let's say you start a new job and you know nothing about the job, but they hired you because the ad said, "We'll train right individual." Well, you're the right individual. You're a living and breathing body. So they hired you, but you know nothing about what they do there. So they train you. They teach you. But let's say for the first 6 months, you have to consciously Be aware of what you're doing. You go into work every day and you have to sit there and go consciously through your thinking, your memories. How'd they tell me to do this? How'd they tell me to do that? What am I supposed to do here at this level, at this point? You have to consciously think of those things. Maybe even write them down, how to do it in order. And you go in with that list every day. But it becomes unconscious after a while. It becomes a new behavior, it becomes a new pattern for you because you were consistent. You were consistent about doing it the way you were taught, and you did it so much repetitively that now it is automatic. So let me go on. That was my version. Let me go on with this guy's article here. So it's time to start a new dialogue with your unconscious mind. One that tells the mind that actually you are a confident public speaker. Or perhaps one that tells your unconscious mind what a relaxed, easygoing, natural-born leader you are. Something like, I'm comfortable wielding power, and I do it with ease. Or one that expresses your natural ability to lead right on the fly. I naturally take charge of the room when I go into a meeting. Whatever fits you and your circumstances best, you should use. Again, this goes on my theory. Well, not my theory, but what I say a lot is act as if. When you act as if, it's the same concept as what I just explained to you. If you want to be a non-smoker, then stop identifying yourself as a smoker. Stop saying, yeah, I'm a smoker. Yeah, one of these days I'll quit. No, get up in the morning and say, I'm a non-smoker. I'm a non-smoker. Act like a non-smoker. If I'm a non-smoker, I have to act like a non-smoker. And when you do that, you're rewiring your brain. You're rewiring it, reframing it. Eventually, everybody's different, so we can't put a time frame on there. But eventually, if you continue to do that every day, even on the days that you might slip and have a cigarette and smoke, which is a whole nother show I would like to get into also, because that's another thing about, let me just slip a little piece in there of it. When we fail, we give up. So if we're trying to quit smoking or quit drinking or quit whatever it is we're doing, the minute we slip and do it anyway, we fall off the wagon for a minute, we give up. We say, man, I tried. I might as well I'll start over again next week. And next week comes and you don't. No. If you fall off the wagon, if you pick up that cigarette or that drink or whatever it is you're trying to quit, if you pick it up, okay, accept it. You did it. You made a mistake. You're not perfect. Be honest about it. Be honest with yourself about it. And then say, but I'm a non-smoker. I don't know why I smoked that cigarette, but I'm not going to smoke another one because I'm a non-smoker. And non-smokers don't smoke. Don't give up. It's all in the way you frame your mind, your mindset. All right, let me move on with this article here. You're going to say this line to yourself every chance that you get, one of the lines that I just gave you, but especially when you're falling asleep or when you're waking up or having doubts or worries about your leadership capacity. And this, my friends, this goes for anything, not just in this. This guy's giving you the example of, like, if you're going in, being a leader, okay? But this works the same way for everything, okay? So listen, I'm going to read that again. You're going to say this line to yourself every day, every chance you get, but especially when you're falling asleep, waking up, or having doubts or worries about whatever the issue is you're trying to change. When you're acting as if, okay, you have to continue to tell yourself that you are convincing yourself. Our unconscious mind hears everything. It sees everything that's happening all the time. And it's constantly filtering what it should store, what it needs to hold on to and what it doesn't need to hold on to constantly. Because our conscious mind can only process up to seven things at any given moment. So all of these things that are happening around us, the wind blowing, the birds chirping, the water, this, that, the lights are on, the books are on the shelf, the car just passed, the motorcycle, the guy jogging, what all these things are happening all at the same time. But our conscious mind can't, unless we draw attention to it, like if the guy tripped over a tree branch and fell, okay, that's out of the ordinary. We're going to draw our attention to that. Now he's in our focus. But otherwise, we might look at him and then not even realize that we just looked at him, and we just go about what we were doing. We don't pay attention to everything consciously, but we do unconsciously. Our unconscious mind is absorbing everything that's happening. The sounds, the smells, the taste, the sensations, the chills that we get, everything, the emotion, how we're feeling. It's sunny day. It sparks our emotions. We feel good because it's a sunny day. It's warm. There's a beautiful breeze. The birds are chirping. On a rainy day, it's for some people, it's still a happy day for them. But for most people, it's a dreary day. And that's because that's the way our mind is working. That's the way it's been trained. Okay? But anyway, to the point of the unconscious, it absorbs everything that happens to you at every given moment, even when you're sleeping. The unconscious mind doesn't sleep. It is there to protect us. So it decides on its own what it needs to hold on to and what it needs to get rid of. When you have repetitiveness that keeps happening over and over again, eventually it becomes normal to the unconscious. So it's storing it. It's keeping it there now. It's becoming a norm. Your norm. My norm. And that's just the fact of the matter. So your environment, everything that you surround yourself with, your unconscious mind is absorbing every bit of it. And this is why people say you are a product of your environment. You ever hear that saying? Well, you literally are. Literally. Because repetition rewires your brain. So if you're around fear or things that cause you to be anxious, and you're around it all the time, and you're exposing yourself to that all the time, or loud people yelling, cursing, this, whatever the case may be, it's causing the unconscious to store. And what it does is it's making a timestamp. Okay, at 3:01 p.m. and 37 seconds, okay, I mean, not that it's going to remember exactly what time it is, but I'm just making it as a example. Okay, something traumatic happened. I feel this way. I could smell this in the air. I see this. I hear this. And it was warm. Your unconscious mind is stamping that moment in time and everything that it has just absorbed. Your feelings, emotions, your senses. And it holds it. It stores it because something happened that caused an emotion with you. It stores it. So, over time, things could go well for you. You could be a happy camper, whatever. You got married, you had kids, you're living a great life, you're making lots of money, whatever. But put you in a situation that may be similar to one that you experienced maybe when you were a child. And you only have to be there for a short amount of time. And this person that is so calm and peaceful and, for the past 20 years, their spouse knows them as this little, happy-go-lucky person, and then they find themselves in a old familiar situation, and they have a different reaction, one that the spouse has never seen before. Why is that? Because the exact or very, very similar, extremely similar situation that their unconscious stored in their mind when they were a child 40 years ago just came to life. They found themselves consciously in a situation so familiar to that experience that they have a reaction. And they don't even know why. They don't know why it's happening. Later on, after they leave, the spouse is like, "What happened earlier? What was wrong with you?" And the person is like, "I don't know. Or they find something. Well, maybe it was that I felt uncomfortable around this particular person, or I didn't like the lighting, or it was cold in there. There was too many people talking at the same time, or whatever the case may be. Our minds will try to search for why that happened, because we're not consciously aware of why it happened. So we're looking for an answer. Why did I respond that way? You're never going to figure it out, ever, unless you have somebody help you. Unless you have somebody that knows how the unconscious mind works and has an understanding of how it works. They know the right questions to ask. To make you draw out something that would cause that. You'll never figure it out on your own, ever. It's almost impossible, because it is impossible for us to get into our own unconscious mind. It's almost also impossible for anybody else to get into the unconscious mind. There's a wall. There's a wall there. And, I'm drawing a blank right now, so let me Google this. But I'm going to tell you right now what the name of that wall is. I'll know it once I see it. Let's see here. Anyway, I can't think of the name of that, what it's called. All right. Well, I'm not going to spend too much time looking for it. I'll get back to you on that. But there is, it's an invisible wall, obviously. But it see, our unconscious, the way our Creator created us, He created us to have self-defense mechanisms, like the fight or flight, okay, the amygdala. He also designed us with an unconscious mind, somewhere to not process, but to store and to train us, to give us personality, to give us character, instead of just being a bunch of walking zombies, just processing information all the time. But he designed this. There's a wall there, so people can't easily change us. We can't be easily persuaded. Is the way we are designed. He designed us that people can't get into our deepest parts of our unconscious mind until now. Well, until Sigmund Freud and Milton Erickson figured out a way to get past that wall, and it's through hypnosis. It's through hypnosis, but it can also be done in what's called conversational hypnosis, which is you're not staring at a stopwatch swinging in front of your face. You're not going under, you're not going into like a deep sleep, you're having a conversation with someone and they just know how they're speaking calmly to you. They're speaking monotone to you. Very, very short and simple words. And they're just building a rapport with you. And building that rapport and letting your guard down, and by the right questions that they ask, they're breaking through that wall to where they can actually start pulling things out of your unconscious mind. Because you can't do it. You can't do it on your own. I mean, I don't want to say that to... It's not impossible, I guess. Let me rephrase that, because I don't want people to think that I don't know what I'm talking about. It's not impossible, but it is extremely difficult. Extremely difficult. And you have to have years and years and years of experience of self-hypnosis. It's what's called self-hypnosis, to be able to rewire, to be able to get into your own unconscious mind, to change the way you feel about certain experiences that you've had. Okay? You can't have a session with yourself. You can't you can't sit there and talk to yourself. It's two different people. So, how you feeling today? Oh, I'm okay. No, that's just not, it's not going to work. You're not going to be able to ask yourself the questions to be able to draw out the trauma, the traumatic event or events, a chain of events that happened to cause you to have a certain belief that causes you now to react in a certain way, your behavior. You can't do it. It's going to be very difficult to do on your own. You can do self-hypnosis. You can, being mindful, which I, talk about in other areas of the, on the website and the broadcast. Being mindful, that is one thing, but actually changing changing the way you feel about memories that you don't even know are affecting you. That's extremely difficult to do on your own. So anyway, I'm at 43 minutes. You know what? We'll just go a little bit longer. Let's, I'm going to continue reading. There's only a little bit left to this, three paragraphs here, small paragraphs of this, Psychology Today article. Okay, so I'll read that one again where I left off. You're going to say this line to yourself every chance that you get, but especially when you're falling asleep, waking up, or having doubts or worries. Okay? Most especially, you're going to say it when the old doubts, fears, and issues start themselves up in your mind. Every single time a negative thought creeps into your mind, it's time to state your positive alternative. Let the line become your mantra. Say it to yourself hundreds of times a day, if necessary. And this is where I came up with act as if. Well, not that I came up with it, but this is the people that know me know that I say this a lot. Okay? Now do this for 3 weeks, a month, whatever, and you'll find yourself becoming more authoritative, confident, or whatever it is that you've been working on. You'll notice the change. In 3 months, you'll find that you are effortlessly facing new situations that would have slowed you down in the past or paralyzed you. How quickly you proceed will be determined by how deep-seated the old fears were, how often you say your mantra, and how often you neutralize the negative thoughts as they come up. It's up to you. It's your chance to take charge of your communications, your persona, the brand that you want to put forward to the world. Take charge of it and become the best version of yourself. Or you can leave it to chance and let the worst version of yourself determine who you are. It's a great article, and again, it's on Psychology Today. Nick Morgan, PhD. He's the author of that. I really wanted to get into my textbook here, but I'll have to do another one. Maybe next week I'll continue this. Maybe we'll do it again next week. We'll continue this. I wanted to talk about anxiety and how the fear that I initially opened up with, how fear causes this anxiety. You know what? I have a few minutes. I'm gonna read some paragraphs here out of this book. If we go to an hour, that's fine. Everyone has worries and fears, even the rich and the famous. Sigmund Freud argued that anxiety can be adaptive if the discomfort that goes with it motivates people to learn new ways of approaching life's challenges. But whether it is adaptive or maladaptive, the discomfort can be intense. The anxious person who is waiting for the worst to happen is often unable to enjoy a personal life or gain gratification from work. Anxious people may thus prevent themselves from experiencing positive outcomes in their life. The term anxiety is usually defined as a diffuse, vague, very unpleasant feeling of fear and apprehension. The anxious person worries a lot, particularly about unknown dangers. In addition, the anxious individual shows combinations of the following symptoms: rapid heartbeat, shortness of breath, diarrhea, loss of appetite, fainting, dizziness, sweating, sleeplessness, frequent urination, and tremors. All of these physical symptoms accompanying fear as well as anxiety. Fear differs from anxiety in that people who have fears can easily state what they are afraid of. People who feel anxious, on the other hand, are not aware of the reasons of their fear. But let's be clear, anxiousness is a byproduct of fear, okay? Though we don't know it's fear, because we don't know, when we say we're afraid, we know exactly what we're afraid of. So even though fear and anxiety involve similar reactions, the cause of worry is readily apparent in the former case, but is not all clear in the latter. Examples of common fears include fear of being evaluated in a negative way by others, like a job interview, and the fear of bodily injury or illness, maybe thinking about the possibility of a crash. For persons suffering from anxiety disorders, intrusive thoughts often take the form of worries about possible future events and outcomes, or catastrophic interpretations of past events that emphasize the negative, especially with regard to mistakes an individual may have made. These intrusive worries and exaggerated, distressing interpretations are characteristic of the anxiety experience and often seem to have an automatic quality that emanates more from the individuals themselves than from what is actually going on. The characteristics of anxiety include feelings of uncertainty, helplessness, physiological arousal. A person who experiences anxiety complains of feeling nervous, tense, jumpy, or irritable. Often he or she has difficulty falling asleep at night. An anxious person becomes fatigued easily and can have butterflies in their stomach, as well as headaches, muscle tension, and difficulty in concentrating. There is growing evidence that people suffering from anxiety disorders are overly sensitive to threat cues. Such individuals may exhibit a heightened sensitivity, vigilance, or readiness to attend to potential threats. Now, here is a list of common symptoms of anxiety and self-description given by people with high levels of anxiety. They include nervousness, jitteriness, tension, feeling tired, dizziness, frequency of urination, heart palpitations, feeling faint, breathlessness, sweating, trembling, worry and apprehension, sleeplessness, difficulty in concentrating, and hypervigilance. So, let me see. It says, this chapter focuses on the serious maladaptive aspects of anxiety, but it is useful to remember that anxiety has many causes and that all people experience it at some time in their lives. It is normal for people to experience anxiety when faced with stressful, threatening situations. But it is abnormal to feel strong chronic anxiety in the absence of any obvious cause. A generalized anxiety disorder is marked by chronic anxiety over a long period, meaning at least several months. A panic disorder consists of recurrent sudden anxiety attacks in which the individual experiences intense terror and dread. In phobic disorders, the anxiety has an identifiable cause. For example, being near dogs or having to speak to a group. When the stimulus is not present, the phobic person's tension level is relatively low. In obsessive-compulsive disorder, anxiety results from efforts to prevent undesirable outcomes. The individual is plagued with a recurrent need to ward off disaster by thinking about certain ideas and or performing certain acts. In post-traumatic stress disorder, intrusive thoughts, numbness, and anxiety persist long after the stressful event has ended. Excuse me. I need it. Let me take a swig of my drink here. Got a tickle in my throat. Many clinicians used to describe people who were suffering from anxiety disorders as neurotic. All right, they start to get into some different studies that were done. I'm not going to get into all that. But we're going to continue with this, though, next week. Because this is a very important excuse me, man, this is a very important topic, especially in the current condition that the world is in with COVID-19. Anxiety levels have skyrocketed, but I really want to continue with this. I think it would actually be very helpful for many people if they were to understand why they feel the way they do, why they do the things that they do. That's another thing I want to share with you real quick. When we get angry with people for doing something, for their behavior, let's say, we must learn, and it's not an easy task. Trust me. Believe me on this one. It's not an easy task, but it will get easier over time. If you put it to practice, you have to practice. We all have to practice. We must understand that people do things based on what they believe is the right choice in that very moment. They could regret it 5 minutes later, but in that very instant, they do what they think is best. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the behavior is. You have to remember this. Just because you would have reacted differently doesn't make the other person literally wrong. Because in their perception, in their reality, in their childhood, they lived a different life than you did. They have experienced different things than you did, which causes them to perceive things differently. We have to understand this. It's hard. I have a problem too. We all do it. Some people call it judgment. It's not really judgment. We're not judging you. We're not sending you to the hellfire. But it's we're not condemning you to hell. But it's not judgment. It's just we don't understand. We don't understand. But it's important for us to work on that. It's important for us to practice that, to keep telling ourselves, even if we react to their behavior, at some point you're going to settle down, in a few hours, a day or two, whatever it is, and you can reevaluate the situation, and just you have to try to remind yourself that they reacted the best they knew how in that moment. Whatever caused them to do that, they thought it was the best thing. It's hard because sometimes we just don't get it. We cannot understand it because we didn't live it. And I'm not making excuses. There's a difference. Be aware of people who take advantage of that. Okay? And what I mean by that is you can't repetitively take a beating from someone, their behavior, and just chalk it up to, they did what they thought was best. They kicked my butt. You know what I mean? No. We can't. I'm not asking you to excuse their behavior. I'm asking you to understand their behavior. That's what I'm asking. So, if it's going to be repetitive and it happens all the time and they just aren't willing to acknowledge that they have a problem, that they're seeing that their perception or their reality is off and they should really, try to understand your perspective. If you're not willing to work at it, then it doesn't matter what kind of relationship it is, friendship, a marriage, a family member. If they're not willing to work it out with you and talk and sit down and talk about it and share both of your experiences and your perceptions, after doing that so many times and it's still going on and on and on, there's got to be a line set. There has to be a boundary, because you can't live in misery, and especially if it's like an abusive relationship. You do not tolerate an abusive relationship. I'm not making excuses, so please, anybody that's listening, do not think that I'm making excuses for bad behavior, because I'm not. I'm trying to get everyone to understand that we all do things based on our past, the life that we've lived, our experiences. Sometimes it takes someone that's very aggressive to bring those experiences to the surface so that we can recognize them and say, wow, I didn't even realize that was happening. But yeah, I do see your point. I do see the way you could possibly perceive that. And I'll work on it. And allow them, give them the time to work on it. That's totally up to you. So please don't think I'm making, I want you to excuse any and all behavior. especially if it's ongoing, if it keeps continuing. No, I'm not saying that. So anyway, all right, I'm at 1 hour. I'm going to finish this up next week. I will be here on Tuesday. We'll finish this up on Tuesday night. We're going to talk more about anxiety, the different types of disorders, and then we're going to talk about how we can control them and fix them. So, all right, thanks for joining me tonight, folks. Have a great night, and check out the website, renewingmylife.com. Also, I have a couple books on Amazon. So look up my name as the author, Dr. Robert John Bonus, PhD. I appreciate it. Have a great night, folks. We'll talk soon.